I started actually a group with the mayor's office called Boston Young Entrepreneurs, and I think they had an event for this very week a few days ago. But you know, I see a lot of younger entrepreneurs who are just so fixated on the details, and they're so fixated on doing everything themselves. They won't let anybody get close to the books. They won't let anybody pay the bills. They won't let anybody write a line of code that they didn't approve of. You know, they won't let anybody do anything. You're literally choking your own potential, you know, by doing that. So, for me, you know, the most valuable lesson, and I know I'm kind of circumventing the question, that was always focus on the big picture because you're the only person who sees it. And I didn't mention that I was a music major when I went to Berkeley. And I frequently say that the most valuable business course I took was conducting, the conducting class, because it teaches you that you, as a conductor, you don't play oboe or French horn or trombone better than anybody in the orchestra, but you're the only person who has a complete score. You're able to make these people somehow, hopefully, come together and produce something that's cohesive and sounds good to the audience. So a business for me is, you know, it's not dissimilar to a restaurant. You know, there's chaos in the kitchen and there's insanity, and you're the visionary of what this thing is going to look like, and hopefully the customer at the other end of that wall doesn't see any of this insanity. You know, or it's the same thing, you know, an orchestra. I frequently use the analogy of a jazz band or an orchestra when it comes to management, because it is the same. You have a bunch of individuals, and your job is to make them sound well, and sometimes it gets in the way if you know too much about one instrument, because you're always just picking that one thing. So maybe the greatest fortune that I've had is not being great at any particular thing other than perhaps convincing people. I always thought I was a good salesman. I believe that's my greatest gift, and I try to teach everybody in my company how to present, because I think it's the most valuable skill set, you know, to be able to stand in front of an audience or in front of an audience of one and present an idea. And I'll never forget sitting at Café Bukhara, which is an Indian restaurant in Jamaica, playing over an Indian lunch in August, I think August 23 of 2000, and pitching my business to this guy. I think I met you actually pitching my business to raise money. And the guy literally, before the lunch was over, says, "I'm giving you 25 grand. I'm like, great. You know, and it gives you so much confidence. So yeah, you know, some of the things I'll echo. Go out there, and whether you're in a band or in a business, talk to everybody about what you do. Like, I hear a lot of people pitch me their ideas all the time, and sign an NDA, do this, do that. Like, don't talk to anybody about my idea. And I'm like, you're not giving me government secrets here. I have found that I benefited a lot by just never shutting up about the damn thing. And here I am. I haven't shut up, you know, 8 years later, and I won't. You know, so that's the thing that I've learned. Just keep on going.
My first business, we just sort of went out and did it. We made a lot of mistakes, but had we tried to, you know, figure out every risk before we got out there and just went and did it, we would have, you know, never got started. So, you know, get started, like, do something.
There are examples of the music industry, the top rung of the people who really drove and continue to drive what is that major label stuff, who still do the equivalent of showing up to ask for money in private jets. You know, so that's a big issue. And again, there's more. I feel obligated to keep it short. If there are any other questions, or
I'll just be really, really quick. I also think that that's going to change, because generally, because the industry was controlled by a handful of, let's say, a handful of people, a handful of companies. There's a protectivism that goes there. You know, so control generally breeds you know, abuse of power. And I think that with the internet, there's no longer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 companies controlling this thing that we call the music industry. So I think that in the future, propensity to be friendly towards innovation is going to be endemic to what the industry is doing. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Whether it was, I believe, publishers suing the radio people back in the 20s, you know, whether it was film studios suing the video industry, you know, in the 80s, traditionally entertainment business, I think, has been technophobic. But who the players are in the industry has changed so dramatically, and I think it's going to continue to change. that I think the future is only bright when it comes to innovation and adoption, because finally people are realizing that it's your friend, not your foe.
It's where so it all started in Northeastern too.
Oh, yeah.
Consider file sharing
Right, yeah.
apps are started right here.
Yeah, you know, a kind of real populism that major business and really the stuff of watching, you know, capitalism and free markets change. You know, that's a lot of what's happening, and it needs to change. And you can't accelerate it the same way you can't accelerate a genesis, pregnancy, and birth. You can't bring another woman in and have it done in 4.5 months. It's got to take the time it takes. And Nokia will probably take a hit. And God bless them, they're contributing with that hit. And God bless you, willing to invest in, willing to experiment, willing to be the pioneer over whose graves the successful will walk. iTunes, what iTunes has actually become is they're the digital equivalent of the brick and mortar. They are really not, they're not gathering information for me. And so they are, it's a wonderful place. The big players still kiss their ass just like they kiss the asses of the brick and mortar guys at everybody from Tower to Virgin megastores. And it's a great place to, if you can get, it's a shelf space issue. They'll continue to be there, but I believe they will be a story that will come and go.
There's also a natural ceiling too. You know, I mean, they own what 70+% of the market.
Yeah.
I mean, where do they go?
Yeah.
You know, I don't think any company ever will own 100% of the market.
Yeah.
Even Microsoft own 92% of the market.
Yeah.
The one thing I was going to say is it's all about selling iPods. It's not.
Yeah,
if you look at sort of the money
Yeah.
flows, even at, I know when they tripped the bill, $4 billion in sales. You look at 100 million, 200 million iPods. Do the math.
Yeah.
It's all about that.
Companies like Nimbit, and Nimbit also, by the way, case study, it's really worth looking at. These guys have figured it out. Not that I'm the God's word on what works and what doesn't work, but being close to it and being dependent. I'm not flying in a private jet, out to Framingham. But it's really worth looking at because they look hard at what the real issues are that are forcing the music industry as an industry to change dramatically, and have addressed those issues and have taken their lumps in the process, but have painstakingly really addressed so many of what are the needs of the people who are dedicated to finding success as artists, as labels, indie labels, and they're servicing real need, and they're completing the loop. They're really bridging from from problem to solution in many, many ways that also, because they've added an instant e-commerce capability for anybody to be their own record store, for me and for you, that it's a much nicer model, though it'll take a longer time to really spread than the iTunes model. It's worth taking a look at to compare. Well, let me thank the panel. Thank you, gentlemen. And thank you all for joining.